Welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. Luke, I'm just looking at the sign behind me. It's from the old TV show Inside Pressbox. So maybe we should make this Inside Pressbox instead of
Yeah, I
Pressbox
think that'd be
Live.
a great idea.
Yeah. All right. I've I haven't been in this room for a couple of months. So anyway, we are live every Monday. Ross Grimsley, unfortunately, is not going to be with us today. Had to assist his wife at a doctor's appointment. And I know what that's like. Um, Luke Jackson is with me, the managing editor of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. Let me tell you who brings you the program. We are brought to you by our friends at the Costas Inn, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the Costas Inn in about 15 minutes. Right now, I'll tell you we're also brought to you by the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. If you're craving that classic New York deli experience, look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand rolled bagels, and something different. That's right, a bar. Atman's has food and drink specials every day, now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at our bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com. And we ask you the question about our other sponsor, what company makes your home more energy efficient, kills all allergens and viruses, qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? That would be AJ Michaels. Turn to the experts, AJ Michaels and Carrier at ajmichaels.com. Luke, we take the airwaves this Monday, and we're into the month of June. And I wrote my power rankings this week, and you well know you edit them. So I had an opening commentary. This date is kind of significant. I think a lot of us tend to think in Baltimore that after the season we had in 2023, that we were just anointed that we were going to be back in the first place in the playoffs, and the Yankees really weren't that good. If we remember, June 3rd last year is the exact date that Aaron Judge tripped. He bounced into that gate at Dodger Stadium, tripped when the gate broke open on a weird curve there, and tore a ligament in his toe. And the Yankee season from that point on, they were about 2.5, 3 games behind the Orioles. From that point on, the Orioles won 60 games. Yankees were 47 and 55 the rest of the way, and we beat them handily. This is a very different Yankee team in 2020.
Yeah, and pretty much everything that could go right for them has gone right, except for Garrett Cole missing the first 2 months of the season. Juan Soto, who they traded for this offseason, has fit in like a glove. Like he was exactly what they needed to hit in front of Aaron Judge. Uh, the starting rotation without Cole has been terrific. They had a great value add in Marcus Stroman this offseason. He's been really good. Luis Heel is one of the most electric starting pitching
No
arms
question
in
about it.
the major
Seven and
leagues,
one with a 1.99 ERA.
and he looks every bit of it when you watch him pitch. I mean, it
Yeah.
is a big time arm. Carlos Rodon probably doesn't have quite the same stuff he did when he was at the top of his game, but he's mostly bounced back. He's looked really solid. I know he had a tough go of it in that start in Baltimore, but otherwise, he's been really good. Uh, Nestor Cortez has been okay. He's been really good at home, not so good on the road. And then
Clark
the one
Schmidt's
thing
been
that,
serviceable.
yeah, and the one thing that's gone a little bit wrong for them has been Clark Schmidt, who just got hurt, and he's going to
Oh,
be
I
out.
did not know that.
Yeah, he's going to be out. It seems like at least 4 to 6 weeks. So, but
That's
Cole
that's
should
who
be able.
Cody Poteet is replacing.
Yes, and
Okay, and
then
he's looked very good.
yeah, and he had 5 solid innings for them the other day, and so I'm sure he'll be in the rotation until Cole comes back, and then Cole will slide right back in. So, yeah, I mean and then Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, as you mentioned, have been just otherworldly, especially in the month since May 1st. So,
And I have a smell test, that I have, or we call it a litmus test. And a player is really a pain in the ass when you start to hate him. And I already hate Volpe Anthony Volpe, the shortstop. He's a star, and he is in a lot of ways. I know Judge is technically the captain of the team. He reminds me of the old time captains that the Yankees had. He's really, really an integral part of the engine that drives that team.
Yeah, so he was a part of that monster 2019 draft. He was taken, I think, about 10 picks before Gunnar. And he's from New Jersey, and he had a strong commitment to Vanderbilt, and the Yankees might have been the only team that he was willing to sign with. And so he was not, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was not seen as an easy sign
Right.
coming out of the state of New Jersey. Obviously, the Yankees ended up inking him. Last year was a little bit of a struggle for him with the bat, and particularly catching up to high heat. It seems like he's made the proper adjustments, and with his speed and his defense, if he can hit, he's going to be a monster player, and that's certainly what he looks like this year.
Another player, and you and I've talked about it off the air, and you rightly pointed out, big difference in Alex Verdugo when he goes to the Dodgers as the centerpiece for Mookie Betts and is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to, in some way, shape, or form, replace Mookie Betts in Boston. Now he goes to New York. I think the Red Sox are not going to like the fact that they traded him to the Yankees because he fits that team really well. He's just another piece there and a really solid ball player.
Yeah, so he fits a lot better hitting sixth or seventh than he does serving as like a big time run producer hitting third or fourth in Boston,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and I think with the depth the Yankees have, they can sort of maybe not strictly platoon him, but he's obviously going to play every day against right-handed pitching, and then you can spell him a little bit against lefties. But yeah, I think Cashman, his priority this offseason was obviously to add left-handed outfield bats, which they felt like they were in
Yeah.
dire need of. And two of the guys that they were looking at, and really three, if you include Trent Grisham, Juan Soto, Alex Verdugo, and at some point, Cashman said, "Well, let's get both of them." You know what I mean? Let's
Yeah.
just go get both.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's worked out great. Like I said, everything that can go wrong, excuse me, can go right, seems to have gone right for them so far, other than Garrett Cole, and he's on the way back. I think he has his first rehab start tomorrow. So it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the Orioles to win the division with how the Yankees are playing. Now, that doesn't mean the Yankees are going to play at this clip the entire season. They almost certainly aren't. It's baseball. Things happen.
If they
But
get if they get the kind of pitching, if Cole comes back as a reasonable facsimile, like 80, 85%
right.
of what he is, and Rodon and Gill and Stroman are still solid, I don't think the Orioles can beat them in the division.
Yeah,
You know,
and then you look at the lineup, and I was saying this, I might have said this to you before the season. Look, any lineup with Judge and Soto in it's going to score a ton of runs.
yeah,
And that, I mean, and that's exactly how it's played out. I will, one thing I will say is that they will come up on the innings for Gil Hill,
yeah.
and I don't know how far they're going to want to take him this year after Tommy John surgery. I don't know if it's a reset in there. I have been a little surprised how deep Boone has taken him into some games. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's let him go into
A
the
lot of
eighth,
8 inning games, a couple
and
of times.
God bless him because he's pitched well enough to get there. And but you wonder about where his innings total, where they want it to be. That's one thing that they'll probably have to address at some point because they're not going to let him throw 220 innings this year. I don't think so.
No, so I wrote that as a basis for my piece was that while that's going on, they seem like they did all their work in the off season and they got like sort of a pretty much set team that had to jumble around things with Garrett Cole missing a substantial amount of time. And we don't know that he's going to come back and be what he was.
Yeah.
But
So
anyway,
yeah.
while that took place in the Bronx, I have this sense now watching the Orioles for a couple of months. It's not panic that the Orioles are sort of sorting through things. And I heard Brandon Hyde the other day talk about it in a post game interview. He goes, "Well, I'm trying to play a couple, we got a lot of outfielders, and I'm trying to get guys playing time that I need to get started, and I'm trying to fit it just everything I look at on this team it looks like, well, we're not settled on this, we're not settled on that. And I understand baseball teams evolve during the course of a season or within the window you have to win, but I just don't feel like they're quite as prepared as I'd like to feel we were.
Well, there is about a $210 million spread between them. So that's part of it.
Good point.
One has a
That's a good
$90
point.
million payroll, one has like a $305 million payroll. And
Right.
so, but I mean, that was the case, close to the case last year, too. Um, and the Orioles beat them by about what 20 games or whatever it was. So, but yeah, it seems like their $305 million payroll has been put to good use this year.
Yeah.
And in the Orioles position,
And in fairness, to put the good use and everybody's staying reasonably healthy.
right? And I mean, they've gotten a decent year so far out of Giancarlo Stanton,
Yep.
who really at this point can't play the field, can't run the bases, but he can still hit the ever living you know what out of the ball,
Yep.
and he's still able to do that at a high level. So yeah, I like as I said, it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the Orioles this year, in terms of the division with how the Yankees are playing. Not to say it can't be done because they still play 9 times against each
Yeah.
other. If the Orioles take 6 of those 9, that would go a long way to helping
Yeah.
them climb that hill.
The
But
one the one
go ahead.
category I look at, Luke, is and it was something that I overlooked back in 2014. The Yankees have the Yankees have an on base percentage of 334. The
Mhm.
Orioles are at like a season high right now of 309.
Mhm.
And I certainly think it could get up to 318 to 322. It's
It's
still
still
enough
a
of that.
smallish sample size, yeah.
Yeah, it's still, there's still 110 games to go or 105 games to go. But that was the big difference between us and the Royals. The Royals were like a mid 300, and I'm not comparing the Royals' firepower, but you can't score runs all the time with home runs. The Orioles are within 6 or 7 home runs of the Yankees, but the Yankees are outscoring us a fair amount.
Well, a couple of home runs wouldn't have hurt yesterday when they
Yeah,
had all those base runners and couldn't push any across. They had 18 base runners, 15 hits, 2 walks, and one hit batsman, and could only scratch across 3 runs. And one of those was a solo homer. So really, it was beyond that, it was 2 runs on 17 base runners, and they couldn't push any across. So or many across, I should say. Um, I think part of it is that it seems like they're more aggressive as a team this year, and I don't know if that's because they're being pitched too differently this year. I think the guy you can talk about the most in that regard is Adley Rutschman,
yeah.
who entering this year was a big time walk to strikeout guy, where his walk numbers were really good.
He worked
His
the pitchers and
yeah, and he's been a lot more aggressive this year, and almost to a point where it seems intentional to try to do more damage. And he has done more damage. He's
yeah,
hitting for more power, but that's coming at the expense of some on base. So I don't know if he will revert back to being what he's always been in the second half of the season. Uh, he could, but the biggest culprit is not Adley Rutschman. He's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem has been that their veteran outfielders, Santander, Mullins, and Hayes, have been off to slow starts to varying degrees. It seems like Santander is well on his way out of it. I thought he had some great swings this weekend, and I was always willing to ride it out with Tony because any really good season from the Orioles probably features Tony mashing. He's got to be a big part of it, so you ride it out with him.
yeah.
And since coming off the IL, the swings for Hayes have been better, but overall it's been a struggle for him. And it's really been a struggle for Cedric since that walk-off home run against the Twins, which at this point was like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And if those guys were performing to their career norms, the on-base numbers would look a lot better. But the fact is they haven't.
Yeah.
And so, and coming into this year, they were counting on those guys to be picked parts of the team, and they
Here,
still may be. But I mean, there's still 17 games under over 500.
yeah.
So
I mean,
it's just that, yeah,
this
yeah.
isn't the sky is falling. It's just, and the Orioles, are probably an 85% to make the playoffs, maybe even
I
90% to make
think
the
on
playoffs.
Fangraphs and Baseball Reference, they might even be like 91, 92.
Okay. So, I mean, the sky isn't falling. It's at some point, if we have to play the Yankees, and it's funny, Luke, when we played them in Baltimore about 6 weeks ago, I came away unimpressed with the Yankees. I said, other than Soto and Judge, I don't see a lot. And that team now is really firing on all cylinders. And again, what bothers me most is I don't see a coherent plan by the Orioles to address what it is that ails them. Today, and it's ironic that my piece came out today, they brought up Connor Norby for his first major league play, um, and they put Jorge Mateo, on the IL. Now, technically, they put Mateo on the IL, the 7-day concussion list, to bring up Nick Vespi, which is the only way they could bring Vespi back up this quick, was for an injured player, and they worked around that thing by DFAing Thiago Vieira, who I have no idea what in the world. I mean, that was like Shintaro Fujiyami last year was a really exciting, intelligent gamble by Mike Elias. And I don't underestimate Mike. So there's something his scouts like about this guy, but they left the manager managing with one hand behind his back for like 9 days.
Right.
Uh, and he has been DFA'd. And I'm assuming I don't see anybody that's going to pick him up, but I know that baseball is every team is thirsty for arms. So somebody
Right.
might pick him up. But to me, no great loss if somebody picks him up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure the Orioles would like to slip him through waivers and to work with him down at Norfolk. And you and I were talking about this off the air the other day. Uh, so he pitches on Memorial Day and he
Right.
gives up, I think, 3 or 4 runs, doesn't get anybody out. His
Right.
official Orioles ERA is infinity.
Right.
That he may close the book with, depending on if he clears waiver or not. He did show some flashes in Milwaukee of being an electric arm when
Yeah.
he threw the ball over the plate.
A la Johan Ramirez.
Right, exactly. Very, very similar. And so this is the second type of arm they've tried like that, um, to no avail at this point. So, but
I
what
mean,
you
the
and I were
bar,
discussing,
I guess what we're saying, the bar has been raised, and the Yankees are meeting that bar. They've
right,
come out of the gate all guns blazing, and the Orioles are like fiddling around with this and that and the other thing. And it just, and I got to be honest with you, I'm watching this rotation, I'm watching the bullpen. To me, I no longer see a purpose in not bringing up Cade Povich, either to be that long guy in the bullpen or to put him in the rotation and make Suarez the long guy in the bullpen. Enough fiddling around with the fringy guys. Let's start to see what some of our players can do in this organization.
yeah, they've gotten a lot out of Alberts for us this
Yeah,
year. There's no doubt about it, and he's been a lifesaver for them to some degree. And at this point, I probably think that they think Suarez is their best option as the fifth starter in the rotation. Uh, Povich's last time out for Norfolk didn't go great, and so I'm sure that when they do call him up, they want him to come up on a high note. Uh, I don't disagree that we're definitely nearing time to see what he can do at the major league level. The command still has a little ways to go, I would say, probably before they call him up. And we'll see how that transpires over the next 4 to 6 weeks with Norfolk. But yeah, I don't disagree that certainly this year, I think it's likely that he gets a look just because at this point, he's like their sixth starter. You know what I mean? Because Kramer's on the IL still,
yeah,
Means and Wells are done for the year. And so it's pretty going to be pretty soon that Povich is the next man up.
yeah,
Like if for some reason they needed a starter this go around, he would be the guy who probably comes up.
yeah.
And so he is nearing an opportunity.
it has to do. I had some lunch with some guys that I get together with. One of them's Tom Davis, and Tom says, "Look, don't you agree that next year Mullins, Hayes, and Santander are all going to be gone?"
Hmm.
And it's easy to think that, but I said it's possible, but I don't think all three of them are going to be gone because so far everybody is projecting stardom for Kerstad, Colton Cowser, and perhaps Stowers. Okay, I don't see enough of any of them to make me feel comfortable that Hayes, Mullins, and Santander are all going to be dismissed after this year.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
still a long way to go this season for those
yeah,
guys to turn it around.
yeah,
And certainly it would be great for the 2024 team if that happens. And like I said, it seems like Santander's well on his way, and he's not really anybody I was worried about given his track record.
yeah.
And for me, it's usually something mechanical with him. Sometimes he gets a little, doesn't use his lower half enough for me, and it seems like he's getting back to his best swing. So, and I texted you the other day, I think he's ready to go on a power bender. And I still think that way. I
Yeah.
think he's close to going on a run to carry this team. Go
Before
ahead.
we
You had something?
before we take a break for the Costas in of the three, you're most concerned about Mullins, aren't you? Like me.
Yeah, in the sense that he still plays the heck out of center field, and I still think that their best combination this year includes Cedric in center with like a league average bat, and I think they'll continue to chase that. He just hasn't looked very good for about 6 weeks now, and
No,
I'm not saying that. And dating back to last year, since coming back from that injury,
wasn't
I
the
don't know
same
what his
player.
numbers are since that. They're not very good.
Yeah.
With Hayes, there's definitely a role for Hayes on this team because they just don't have very many right-handed outfield bats. And so someone's got to play against lefties. And so he will certainly do that at the very least.
Yeah.
And today he's playing against Gossman because Gossman is a fastball split guy, and throughout his career he has reverse splits. So you throw a couple of extra right-handers at him.
Okay.
So Hayes will continue to do that sort of thing, and that the swings have gotten better from him. And like as I said, for the 2024 team, the best thing will be for these guys to turn it around with the way this roster is constructed. Remember, this is a $90 million roster, and those three are making about 25.
Yeah.
So this roster was constructed with those guys being good as a central tenant.
No question about it. No question about it. Let me tell you a little bit about the Costas Inn. No uncertainty at the Costas Inn. 50 plus years at the same location. That doesn't mean it's just an old building. It means that these people are tried, tested, and deliver every time you stop by there. If you're planning a crab feast for the summer, look no further than the Costas Inn, but you do have to use that phone number, 410-477-1975. Find out the availability, the crab size you want, and the cost. Those are all key factors to make your crab feast for you and your friends or family the best that it can be. And the Costas Inn will deliver great quality. They're steamed crabs, but doesn't stop there. They've got nightly specials Monday through Friday on the menu. Some really great specials: seafood, chicken, beef. It's all there at the Costas Inn. Great desserts, great place to go to watch any sporting event. 4100 North Point Boulevard, the Costas Inn. Please tell them that Stan the Fan and the guys from the Monday Zoom, Ross and Luke, said to stop by the Costas Inn. Luke, getting back to it, we're facing the Blue Jays the next four games, and the Blue Jays look like this is the key moment for them in the season. They had a 5-1 week this past week, I believe. Yep, 5-1. They've moved to within two games of 500. It seems like it's now or never for them. Um, the general manager, Russ Atkins, has come out and said preposterous that we would trade Bichette or Guerrera this year. Still a lot of baseball to be played this year, and we're hoping, of course, we've talked to them about continuing with the Blue Jays. Where do you think this team is right now? And they just
So,
lost Jordan Romano.
oh,
Uh,
did they? I didn't see that.
yeah, I think he's out, might be out for the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and so
Let
their
me see if
closer
I
at
can
this
find
point,
that out.
I assume Yimi Garcia would be their closer.
They're actually looking, I think, at Nate Pearson right
Okay. All
now.
right. Hard thrower. All right.
Yep.
So yeah, it's the Blue Jays are somewhat in the danger zone, in the sense that, yeah, they're probably within shouting distance of that third wild card, but they only have a year and a half left of Bichette and Vlad, and they still haven't won a playoff game with those two guys. And I don't know what kind of efforts they've made, Stan, to extend those guys.
Yep.
I'm sure that
He
they've
made it
talked with,
clear that they're having look, the Orioles haven't extended Adley Rutschman or Gunnar Henderson, and they're saying the same thing. Like, of course, we're talking to them. It does take two to tango,
right,
you know. So,
right.
by the way, Jordan Romano's out 15-day IL because of a sore elbow. But what I read was a little more ominous
Okay.
than just
All
15
right.
days.
And then Kikuchi is a free agent at the end of the year, and if they decided to move him at this deadline,
He's
they probably
falling
get a
back. He's
decent
not having
haul.
a good year.
Oh, he's not.
Not. No, I
Okay,
don't think so.
I thought he was having a. Excuse me. I think he's a
Maybe
solid.
I'm making things up that
I
I
think
thought
he's
I.
a solid left-handed arm. He had a
He had a
good
great
season
year
last.
last
He
year.
had a great year last year. The year before, not much, but yeah, I mean they're certainly coming up on decision time in some respect about what they want to do with their core moving forward. And my guess is that they, at least through this season, see this season through, and with the core that they have in place. Another problem is that they do have some contracts on the books, like George Springer, who is clearly on the other side of the mountain, and
Yeah.
he's making a lot of money. And mm, I mean, maybe the best days for this core are behind them. And you look at you look at Toronto's lineup in 2021, and the team didn't even make the playoffs, and you wonder how in the world did that happen.
Right.
They had Vlad, Bo, Springer, and Marcus Simeon.
Teoscar,
Teoscar and that is like they had all
and
those guys
Simeon. Right. Right.
at like the peak of their powers. And now you look
Well,
at
they
their
made
line.
a calculated move last year to acquire Dalton Varsho. Then they made the huge gamble move of pivoting to Shohei Ohtani. When they got disappointed in Shohei Ohtani, this is how they replaced him, Luke. Re-signed Kevin Kiermaier, acquired Isaiah Kiner Falefa,
Mhm.
and did bring in Justin Turner. But that's a far when you admit that you need another dynamic bat. And by the way, they got rid of Teoscar Hernandez last year. They got rid of him last year. They're just their offenses never really
Yeah,
met
they're
the mark
depending a
this year.
lot on guys like Davis Schneider
Yeah.
and Danny Jansen.
Yep. Yep. And
At some
Alejandro
points,
Kirk is traded.
at some points this season, Schneider and Jansen have been their two top hitters and
Yeah.
have been hitting 1-2 in the
One,
lineup.
two in the order. Yeah.
And for Vlad, it's sort of the same old story at this point with him, where he hits the ball really hard, but a lot of times it's like directly into the ground,
Yeah.
where it's either a short, like a ground ball single, or to like directly to shortstop. And so, eh, and you look back at his 21 season again, I think he was second in the MVP voting to Shohei Ohtani that year. He was able to hit the ball as hard as he normally does, but get it in the air. And he hit like 45 home runs, whatever it was.
To
And
me, all the strides he made last year in getting into shape, he looks like he's back out of shape to me.
they played with third base the other day.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's an interesting way to get more bats in the lineup, you
right,
know.
who they played first that day? I forget. Like who was he
Um,
moving to third for?
I did look at it because
Okay.
I've
Yeah, I forget. And
and
so,
by the way, Kikuchi is 2-5.
okay.
His ERA though is respectable 3.66.
The way they use him is pretty much as a two times through the order guy.
Yeah.
And and last year he was really good at it. And so he would normally get him in the fifth or sixth inning, and then the third time through, like the middle of the order would start, and they would go get a right-handed reliever because against Kikuchi,
Very similar to what Brandon's doing with Cole Irvin.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very, very similar. So I thought he was having a little better year than he is. So
Um, Real quick, um, we play them 4 games.
mhm.
This is, I really think, a do or die. Let me see who Toronto's playing the rest of the week. They have the O's, and then they travel out to the West Coast to play the A's. So they got the alphabet this week, the O's and the A's. This seems like a hugely important series. You think the Orioles are prepared to match them, the match the fierceness of how the Jays are going to attack this series?
Well, you do that with really good starting pitching,
Yep.
right? And so Grayson goes today, Corbin Burns tomorrow, and then probably Albert Suarez and Kyle Bradish. So if those guys pitch really well,
Yep.
then in the in the words of Pedro Grifol, you can look flat. And it's no matter how much energy you bring to the ballpark that day. So it really falls on the starting pitcher. See if he's able to
That
bring
the
his best
excuse,
stuff.
Pedro? Is that the excuse he's
And
using
I
on not
wasn't
to hear?
I didn't use the full quote that Pedro did. Um, but yeah, if they execute and bring their best stuff to the park, then you can make the most energetic lineup look flat.
Yeah. All right. Well, it gets started tonight. The game time for the night games is 7:07, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Thursday, I believe, is 1:07 on Thursday, I think.
Yeah, it's a 1 o'clock getaway day game.
Yeah.
And so the Jays were a little kinder to the Orioles than the Rays because the the Rays are doing a 6:50 getaway day next Monday night, this time next week.
Oh, we have a
And
wraparound
yeah,
series.
a wraparound in Tampa Bay, but it's not a day game on that Monday. So the Orioles will probably be getting in late. And then they have a game against the Braves the next day at home.
At home.
So
Right.
the Jays were a little kinder to the Orioles than the Rays were.
One thing I heard, by the way, I heard this. My cousin Ron follows this stuff. Ron Matz. The games against the Phillies on Saturday and Sunday
Mhm.
are already nearly
Yep.
sellouts against the Phillies on
Yep.
that's the 15th and 16th.
Yep.
The Friday night has some seats left. I would move quickly
Yes.
to pick one of those games if you want to see the
Yeah,
Phillies.
that will probably be the highest attendance series that Camden Yards in quite some time, I would
Yeah,
imagine. Those
yeah,
are
it's gonna be
two
a
of the
good one.
five best teams in baseball. They're
Yep.
close together. It's going to be a great, great atmosphere next weekend at Camden Yards. There's no
All right.
question.
I urge you. I'll be on Thursday with Eric Garfield, probably about 4:30, 5 o'clock, somewhere in that range. Urge you to go to pressboxonline.com, read all the stories, but look at my power rankings and a warning commentary about how good the Yankees are this year. Didn't mean to be too hard on the Orioles, but I think they're two teams that are in a little bit different mode right now, confidence. We'll see how it plays out. For Luke Jackson and Ross Grimsley, who couldn't be here today, I'm Stan the Fan. We thank our friends at the new Atmans at Harbor Point, AJ Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning, and of course, us. That does it for now. We'll talk soon.